Crocodile Dundee, classic 80s film. That's not a knife. This is a knife, right? That's one of the famous scenes where it's a classic fish out of water story where you have this guy from Australia and he's kind of he's the whole premise of the movie is that this reporter from New York goes to Australia to meet this guy from the outback who's a legend, right? And then she ultimately brings him back to New York, and it's this fish out of water, not only from her in Australia, but him in New York. And they end up falling in love and blah, 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 and it is what it is.
Isn't that the same plot of the movie where there's like an African prince that comes to New York and like hangs out? Was Eddie Murphy in that?
Coming to America?
Yeah, that's what it was called. I was like, explaining Crocodile Dundee, and I was like, wait a minute, I've seen this plot, but with a black man instead of an Australian.
Chris was like, Africa, Australia, it really is the same thing, and they all start with A's.
Yeah, they both start with A. It's like the same place.
Pretty much right. They're pretty much the same movie, right?
Coming to Dundee.
Well, I quoted Crocodile Dundee all the time as a kid. Specifically, that's not a knife. This is a knife, because there's a scene in it, that scene that we're speaking of here, Kirsha, where he's on the streets of New York and this guy walks up and he's going to mug him. I mean, it's in the 80s. This New York is not safe. So he's walking down the street and he's with a reporter and this guy pulls out and he's like, give me all your money. And he's like, what? So he pulls out his giant sheath sword that he has and he's like, that's not a knife. This is a knife, and it's huge. And the guy more or less runs away, and it's a pretty iconic moment. There are other scenes in the movie, though, that people do not like in the year 2025, when this movie was released in 1986-ish.
People had a sense of humor?
Correct. Do you know what a Sheila is when it comes to
Australian lady?
That's right. That's right. Well, they're in the outback in this scene, and he is being approached by a woman at the bar, and the woman itself is, and all the guys are behind this woman, laughing at what's happening right here because Crocodile Dundee over here is kind of like, all right, what's happening here? I'm kind of into what's being thrown down. He then learns that is actually a cross-dressing man by his friends, and because he's looking at this dude in drag, and then he looks at this guy and he takes his hand and he puts it on the guy's junk to confirm that it's a guy, and everybody laughs about it. And he's like, that man was dressed like a Sheila, whatever, kind of laughing about it, and everyone kind of laughs and they have a good time. Well, guess what? There's a new cut of Crocodile Dundee coming out called the Encore Cut that removes that footage from the original film. This is one of those things where we have people upset over the crazy things of making jokes from 1986.
I think shit like this is one of the reasons why normal people have gotten so fed up with any kind of like transgender ideology, right? Because it's like normally normies are just like, we're fast asleep, we don't give a shit about any of this. But it's like they want to throw all of cross-dressing and all of drag queen stuff and all of like anything that could even be remotely misconstrued as transgender. They're like, all of that is ours actually, and all of it is offensive, and so you can't make these jokes anymore.
And I agree with you. It's so tiresome. It's so boring, right?
I've got well, as Blabs would say, tranny fatigue.
Blabs, would you say that?
Yeah, actually. And funny enough, like J.K. Rowling put out this giant tweet about that today, saying like how all these things have absolutely we've regressed as society because of all this shit. And it was actually.
Absolutely.
It's very similar to Crocodile Dundee, because like gays have been harassed even though they don't want all this stuff in like movies and all these ideas pushed either. Children were harassed, all this stuff, and like it ties in with all this stuff that now we're even having scenes removed like 40 years later from a movie. It's like, wow, we're insane.
And it's like it's not even a transgender person. It has nothing to do with being transgender. It's literally like a cross-dressing dude.
Yep.
Right. And you can see actually this flashes in the chat. Flash tweeted this out. This is the footage itself. You can see the the cross-dressing dude talking to Crocodile Dundee. They're at the bar. He gets told, he says, hey man, that's actually a man in a dress. Crocodile Dundee, Mick, that's his name. He's totally naive, and you can see him reach his hand down, and he just grabs and then whoa, and then everybody laughs.
That was a guard.
So he's like,
go away.
that's why, that's just it, right? So they cut that scene out. Then they actually cut out another scene a little bit later on where he's in New York, and there is a kind of nondescript, like older woman in it. And this is the scene here. The lady from New York, the lady on the left is his like love interest in it. That's the reporter. And they go to this like socialite party, and he doesn't know what to think of this person because he can't really tell their hair. So naturally, what he does is he goes up and he does the exact same thing to this person.
Something the matter, darling?
Pleased to meet you.
And she's like,
pleased to meet you.
you're right. And her natural response is this.
It's okay. He's Australian.
They're just barbaric like that. Don't worry about it.
Right. So the whole fish out of water, like this is a callback to an earlier scene in the movie that really takes place in both sides of the world, this Australian outback and over here in New York. It's one of those things where you see this stuff being removed and there's actual context to why this is happening. It's not transphobic. There's a reason why he does it. He's doing it out of ignorance. He's naive to the situation. He doesn't understand, like most people would be in that situation. It actually adds humanity to Crocodile Dundee in a situation like this, where he's...
And it's like everyone is allowed to be made fun of. Movies have made fun of absolutely everyone, every ethnicity, every fucking like race, every whatever you want, right? Like there's just jokes about everyone. And so when like the transgender ideologues get kicked up into a frenzy and they're like, oh, we have to remove this stuff, this stuff is against modern sensibilities, it's just like, what are you doing, man? Like, you want this privileged status where nobody can make fun of anything that even remotely touches in like your little bubble of the world, even if it has nothing to do with you. It's crazy.
Well, to even go further, you can almost, like, if you do, like, some 4D chess with this, you can also say this is racist, right? So Crocodile Dundee, where is he from specifically in Australia? He's from the outbacks. He's really friends with the natives, right? They don't know any of this stuff with trans. So it's not really ignorance. It's, like, a culture thing, right? Like all these indigenous people, natives, they're not trans. There aren't any of those people there. So when you remove this, you're basically saying your culture is ignorant, your culture is shit. So this, you could do some 4D thing with this, is racist to the indigenous people of Australia.
Yeah, but I mean, the people who do this stuff are obviously always racist, you know? That doesn't surprise me. This is like more like castigating old films for the sake of the modern audience, where it's like beloved IPs, beloved movies, things that people enjoyed in the past. We have to change them and remove things that we don't think are acceptable in the modern era. And so that, you know, when the younger generation consumes the availability that we have now of these things, they won't even know that things were removed. They're just like, that's the way it is.
What's interesting about this as well is Paul Hogan is the guy who plays Crocodile Dundee. He actually signed off on these changes. And his logic here seems so fucking flawed. He said Hogan signed off on the changes to the film. Inevitably, someone has wheeled out the word woke and asked him about it. Hogan's response is that people pointed out to him that this guy's a folk hero around the world. He shouldn't be groping people. And I thought, yeah, that's right. He shouldn't be. So take it out. I mean, he did it in innocence, in naivety, but it's better without it.
Nah.
Yeah, like
it's just a joke. It's not like actual Australians go around like groping people before they say hello. Like,
right.
Like Blabs said, the guy's from the outback. He's like, you know, from a different kind of culture. He's not like growing up in big Australian cities, right?
That's the whole point of it. That's literally the whole point of the movie. It's amazing to see the reaches here, and the fact that he like signed off on it is like, ooh, it's better without him.
I'm wondering if it was like a gun to his head kind of thing. Like, you're gonna sign off on this, or we're gonna run around and tell everyone that you're okay with groping, you misogynist. You're also transphobic, by the way. So you know. That's
right. Oh, by the way, yes, you're also. That's right. You're also transphobic.
we're gonna tack on these things to make you scared. So you're gonna sign off on it, bud.
There would be extreme irony if somebody actually held up a knife to him and was like, listen, Paul
it all
Hogan.
comes full circle.
That's right. And he's like, that is a knife. Oh no. Oh man. Well, that's interesting. Very 1984. And
I like how in that article as well, they put the sigh before they said the word woke. No bias at all.
right. Oh. Well, that's it is what it is, man. That's kind of where we're at with society. So